Okay, hello guys. In this video, short or not so, let's see, I want to tell a bit more about my experience during the 10 days Vipassana meditation retreat, even it wasn't such a retreat per se, but let's call it like this. And many of you, mainly my friends, were asking like how it went. With some of you already talked in private messages or we had a call, but I am really lazy, as you might know. And I just want to record the video for everyone and maybe to answer many questions automatically. So what is Vipassana meditation for starters, if you never heard about it? And of course you should Google, but basically this is like the main Buddhist practice. If maybe Christianity and other religions, for their main practice is like, okay, I go to church, I pray, look at the icons of the saints. This is their main practice. And Vipassana meditation is basically the main practice in the Buddhist teachings. And the course I attended to is a course by the Goenka G schools. Goenka G, not like top G, Goenka J-I. And basically he was the Indian entrepreneur who got interested because of the migraines in the Vipassana meditation. It helped him, and basically then he started to spreading the message. And today we are lucky that we have schools and the courses in almost any country in the world. So basically if you want to try, most probably where you live, they have more than one center for Vipassana meditation. And basically the rules are, and what makes it really interesting, that there are 5 main precepts that basically you cannot steal, you cannot kill, you cannot lie, etc., but also you cannot have any contact with the outside world. So basically they take your phone away, and you cannot communicate in any way with other meditators. So basically in my center there were 100 people, 100 students, and you cannot communicate with anyone speaking, signs, looking. It's all prohibited. So basically you're forced to be purely by yourself, and basically all you can do is just meditate and having some thoughts with yourself. And basically this is what makes many people like, oh wow, this is so hard, it's like I'm gonna get crazy, etc. Well, you could, but actually, as you will see, it's not that hard as it sounds like. So basically I want to start with the basically kind of structure of the course. Basically what's the schedule, and there are 10 days. There's also day 0, basically when you just arrive, but you unpackage, etc. There's nothing. And the 11th day, the last day, it's also okay, you get your last meditation, you clean after yourself, you have last breakfast, it's also nothing special. But the 10 days in between that, the schedule is following. You wake up at 4, and from 4 to 4:30, basically this is the time, your personal time. And usually what you do, you go and have shower, brush your teeth. Maybe if you want to do laundry, or you have a bit of sleep, because at 4:30, this is where your first meditation starts. And from 4:30 to 6:30, this is where you can go to the meditation hall, or you can technically stay in your room, but almost no one did it, and you practice the meditation. I'll tell a bit later what kind of levels of meditation do they have, but 4:30, 6:30 you meditate. From 6:30 to 7:15 or so you have breakfast, and of course the food is vegan, so basically you got some grains, porridges, fruits, tea, which was actually really good and tasty. And from 7:15 to 8, again, you have some free time. You don't have to meditate, and you don't really want to meditate in your free time. So basically, again, you do laundry, or you go to, we had like a small forest for a walk to chill, or for the first couple of days, I was literally going to sleep. But then it was like, okay, I got just 10 days here, I cannot sleep. I should do something else. So I was thinking, walking, trying to meditate, etc. From 8 to 11, you have your next meditation session, which is split into 2 parts. From 8 to 9, you have a mandatory sitting session basically in the meditation hall for everyone. And by the way, of course, the male and female sections are really strictly separated. Separate houses, separate areas of the whole meditation territory. In the common meditation hall is designed so you cannot look at each other. Of course, you can kind of have a look, but not really. And eating also separately, etc. So from 8 to 9, the meditation altogether. And from 9 to 11, typically you're asked to stay in the meditation room to meditate altogether, or in some days you could go back to your own room to meditate, which again, this is what you have to do. Not everyone is doing this, and frankly, in my center, it was not like really strict control, so you could basically skip it. But again, this is what you're supposed to do. From 11 to 12, I think, or 11:45, basically you have lunch, also vegetarian diet, vegetables, soups, vegetables both fresh and baked, so typically something like this, and you have some piece of dessert, and dessert was really good, usually some kind of like a carrot cake or lemon cake or soya pudding. That was really delicious, really good. And from 12 to 1, you either can go and ask questions to the teachers. Basically, you have male part, they have their own teacher, females, they have their own teacher, and they're also assistants. But usually you go and ask anything about the practice, about your thoughts, or about basically the Buddhism as the movement, any kind of questions. And from 1 to 5, this is the 4-hour meditation session, which is split into 3 parts. First 1 hour and a half, it's kind of like free session, or in the common hall, or in your own room. Then you have 1 hour of mandatory meditation where everyone has to stay. And starting from the day 4, I think these mandatory sessions, there is 3 of them. This is like something like sitting of the strong determination or something like that. So you cannot move, you cannot move your legs, hands, you can open your eyes, you have to be kind of strict. And the last 1 hour and a half, the teacher was asking to stay one group of the students, and basically then split into smaller groups. You go to the teacher, you have a short discussion, and you can meditate together for 5 minutes. And the last 1 hour and a half session, this is it. And then from 5 to 6, you have your dinner. If you're a new student, you can have a couple of fruits and tea. If you're the old student, you can have just a lemon drink. And then from 6 to 9, there is another session, which from 6 to 7, basically this is another mandatory session. From 7 to 8:15, you have to listen to the discourse. This is basically the Goenka Ji, the teacher. He's explaining it's more about the Buddhism. And then till 9, you have your last meditation. Basically, you get instructions for the next day. And these meditations in the whole, basically, they're directed by the recordings of the Goenka. So basically, the teacher, he or she just turns on the recording, you listen, and Goenka Ji, you can Google, find him on YouTube. He's just like singing and then giving you some commands and instructions what to do. I think the most interesting part is basically the Vipassana meditation itself. And during the course and during the mandatory sessions and general sessions, you're kind of progressing with the technique. So from day 1, 2, and 3, I think, or only 1 and 2, you focus on your breathing. So basically the idea is your breathing, and imagine this is what you have to do 10 hours per day. With breaks, of course, but 10 hours per day, you are breathing and you're focusing on your feelings basically inside your nostrils. Then I think from the day 2 or from the day 3, you start paying attention to the whole triangle area, basically the nose and the upper lip area, the nostrils outside, and basically the idea is that when you really focus on this area, you start feeling maybe maybe temperature is changing, maybe you feel some kind of electricity, maybe you feel like ants on your skin, maybe you feel some pressure. And the idea is that whatever you feel, you shouldn't have any kind of attraction or aversion. You just have to accept what it is, Buddhism. So, and also as a difference from other religious and spiritual movements, you cannot call it a name, you cannot visualize your nose, you have just to accept your body is part of the nature is always changing, everything's changing, and your body is always changing. So basically you have to this is the concept of anicca. You have to accept your ever-changing body, and this is basically what means become a Buddha. So for the next couple of days or a day, you focus on this area, and then you narrow it down to the small area, basically this area, and this way you get your attention laser focused. And I think this ends on day 4, and basically this is the preparation part, because only on the day 4 the Vipassana starts. So when you know how to narrow your attention and feel just really small part of your body, starting from your tip of your head, you start kind of scanning your body with the small patches. So it's like if you know about convolutions, basically you kind of go with the convolutional pattern through your whole body symmetrically, so from all the sides, and you kind of scan it, and you have to go from head to toes, from toes to head, without skipping any piece on the surface of your body. And of course you'll see that your body has different sensations. You go down, you go up, and it's always changing. So basically this is kind of like how you get connected to the nature. This is how you really get the reality of the world through your body. This is basically the idea of this meditation. And this is where the interesting thing happens, is that ideally you can have, when you practice a bit on the day 6, 7, you start having like a flow. You go up and down, and you have a flow through whole your body. And the idea is you shouldn't get attached to this feeling, but also some parts of your body, you'll have not like a nice and subtle flow. You have some rigid emotions, like gross and rigid. It can be either the numbness, basically you kind of feel nothing. This is what I had primarily on my abdominals. Or you had some really harsh feeling. Again, I'm saying not emotion, but feeling, like for example, some harsh, like a rigid zone on your leg with some burning or electricity, which doesn't let the flow go through. Basically, this is the manifestation of something really strong, which can be strong desire. It's like, it can be either strong positive or strong negative emotions like fear or anger. And this is where you have some kind of like interconnection with the Stoicism. In the Stoicism, they also don't recommend you to be exposed to strong emotion of any polarity. And in this Vipassana meditation, Buddhism, the concept is similar. Both strong positive and negative emotions. This is something what is, it's not the goal. The goal is basically to get dissolved into nature, be completely neutral, etc., etc., etc. And but you'll encounter such numbness or strong feelings in your body, sensations. And basically, this means that you're not a Buddha yet. And the idea is you have to practice, you have to notice it and practice again. So you shouldn't try to interpret it, you shouldn't try to work with it. It's not like the Western therapy. Just go straight, you see it, you skip it, and sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't, etc., etc. So basically, this is the practice. Knowing your body, knowing your sensations. Through the sensations, you kind of learn the reality, you learn the nature through the nature of your body, and eventually you become a Buddha. I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course, but this is kind of the idea. So this is how is the practice. And what were my personal insights, or maybe like personal results, I would say, after it. First of all, when you have nothing to do, basically for 10 days, no communication, no phone, you cannot read, you cannot write, and talk to anyone. I think the first reaction is, oh, I'm gonna get crazy, but actually it really balanced my thoughts, both about the idea like you shouldn't live in the future, shouldn't live in the past, you should live only in the present. But when I wasn't meditating, and of course when some thoughts were appearing, both about the past and the future, and actually all these thoughts, they became, I would say, more positive than they could be. So for example, maybe a more typical situation for some of you could be when you think about the future, it can be something anxious, you're scared about something, you're, with all the, trying to play all the negative scenarios. At least this is what I tend to do from time to time. Or when you think about the past, also, you're trying to remember what you could have done better, etc., etc. But instead of that, basically my thoughts about the future became much more, I don't want to say positive, but kind of peaceful, interesting, and let's call it positive. And also about the past, I also remember much more positive and nice and peaceful things from my childhood or university times about my family compared to maybe other thoughts. So this kind of spectrum of thoughts, even the thoughts is maybe not the most desired thing about the past and the future, became much more peaceful and maybe even positive. Second, I would say that I really learned and have deepened my skills of meditation, because meditation is a skill. And before Vipassana, I was practicing things like, mindfulness and some guided meditations. I could spend half an hour, maybe 1 hour doing something, but you cannot compare half an hour, 1 hour home with the headphones to 10 hours during the day meditation doing for the 10 days in a row. It's a completely different experience, and the skill of concentration of your mind, skill of knowing your body is becoming much more profound. So this is definitely a good thing. And the last kind of realization, I think it's really good to do this kind of retreats every year, and not necessarily like Vipassana, any kind of thing where you disconnect from the world, you have to practice something in present, and maybe I was thinking like to try what other spiritual and religious movements can offer, what is similar. I'm sure that in Christian practices, in Muslim practices, in other practices, they have something similar, which right now I'm curious to discover as well. Regardless of my thoughts of the, let's say, of the teachings, but the practices are really, really interesting. And I want to make a small conclusion, like for whom I can recommend to doing this. Again, and I really want to separate the teaching part and the practice part, because I understand that Buddhist teaching is not for everyone, especially if you live in the Western world. It's really, I would say, most probably you're not gonna like just accept it, because it's like what I was thinking, there are interesting parallels. Basically, if this Vipassana and Buddhism is about the nature, basically you have to kind of get dissolved with the nature, nature, everything very natural, law of nature, right? But in the Christianity, for example, like if you take even the Jesus Christ as a prophet, basically he was born unnatural way, he didn't die, which is also kind of natural, and during his lifetime he has completed many unnatural wonders. So I think in the Western world, this kind of idea of we just accept the nature, this is relatively foreign, although it's really interesting, but it's, I would say, hard to accept. But I really would recommend the practice, like a skill of meditation, skill of concentration, skill of knowing your body is really useful. So from this perspective, I really recommend it to everyone. And I think you shouldn't be afraid of 10 days without the phone, 10 days not talking to anyone. It wasn't really hard. For me personally, it was maybe 6, 7 out of 10 of difficulty. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't life-changing challenge, whatever. I know people for whom it was a bit more hard, but I think if you can meditate for half an hour, if you have some basic physical training, like your back, your legs are more or less trained, you do yoga, you play football, you go to the gym, I think you'll be good enough to sit and do the sittings. And I think if you don't have any obvious problems, like you really struggle emotionally, spiritually with something whatever it is, I think you'll complete it relatively easily. I would say that unless you're really looking for salvation or something like this, but again, even if you're looking, you should try. So my broad recommendation is for everyone to try, but pay attention that it's it will be a bit easier for you if you don't struggle in life with anything psychological, emotional, or spiritual. Second is I recommend having some basic training meditation, like mindfulness, whatever it is, and some really basic physical strength. It's if you go to gym, if you do yoga, most probably you'll do just fine. So yeah, this is it. It's not so short, around 20 minutes, but I hope this review will maybe help you to make your own decision to try or not to try doing Vipassana meditation. But anyway, maybe now you can discuss it with other friends and maybe even trying it. Thank you for watching. Ciao.